let's move on to making a connection to a standard style of database. So we have some database information. We have a table of compartmentation information. So what changes now is no longer we focused on the volumetric. We're now more focused on typical naval architecture things. A compartment table with information on damage permeability, structural permeability, free surface rules, typical style of information used in loading computers and stability analysis. And in this case, we have multiple tables. We have a main table and we have some other data that's related, which specifies the role or the contents. So the content may be things like fuel oil, mud, or other items. So we have a solid, cement, and that relationship brings through all of the particular characteristics of the content linked. We also have some purposes, some roles on those compartments. The content specifies what's in the compartment, and these are specifying what the compartment is. And then there's a third reference to specify from the roles what the default content is in these spaces. So quite some complicated relationships and something more detailed to set up. So like before, we'll go to the adapters and we'll add database adapter. So we'll call this our compartment data. And we need to now log into that database. That database is on my local machine, local host. I will need a password. Let's see if we can access that correctly. And then I can find my way to my data. So I'm picking up my database there. Again, as before, that's just kind of a data source. And now we can start to build our true characteristic data that we want to display. So this is going to be information on the content. Again, available to all users. And this is now a little bit more of a complex configuration. We've got to write a formal query. So my search parameter is going to be my name. And rather than write SQL directly, I'm going to use the wizard. Start with the compartments, and I'm interested in, well, certainly maybe the compartment title field. But I'll just go with the contents for now. So we're going to join the contents information from there so we can get an information about that kind of the fluid involved. The content has an ID, and that's linked to the compartment's ID. So let's now get the contents information. So we can get our contents name, contents title, the type of the contents, specific gravity, permeability, anything else that's interesting. Now that's enough for now. And we'll be connecting our name, compartment name field to our name parameter there. Okay, so we've kind of built a query. If I go to here, we can see the query that's been generated behind the scenes. Let's start testing it out. I think we need an actual tank with fluid. So we can see here that this tank was found. It has contents of fluid and all its parameters there. So let's start categorizing these. So these are contents from the database. And I'll just write some text to make it look a bit neater. So this is our title, type, so the gravity of the fluid, and the permeability of the fluid. Not damage permeability or structural permeability, that will get defined next. Let's save that. So if we go back to our model, find some space with fluids, get the contents. If we go to a space without fluid, then it shows nothing. These are water ballast areas. freshwater, like so. And again, we have the opportunity to use these characteristics for characterization to make visual styles. Getting back to the data, let's add a data source to characterization, and let's find our compartment by content. Very similar to the characterization that you saw with Excel, so it's consistent. Now we just have to add the query, but this time I do have to write that using SQL. So in this case, I can select from our contents title and our compartment name from the compartments table, and we'll join contents on contents.id equal to compartments content ID. Of course, we could get this wrong. That's where we have the opportunity to refresh, and there we go, is an example of it working. Let's call that fuel oil. I can address that shortfall in the kind of value that's shown there. So we save it, go back to the model, nothing there yet. Go by content, now we can see the spaces that contain fluids, and their information is shaded down there. Equally, we have that space here. We have our cement tanks, and we could examine them. There we go. So these are all of our tanks that happen to be cement tanks. So next I want to add a bit of information for those spaces that don't have fluids in it. And this is contained in the roles, the role of the space. So let's go and extract that from the database. We need to add under the data source. Available for all users. We'll again have to use the name, and we'll go through that process. So we'll start with the compartments, join the roles where the role ID is the same as the role associated with the compartment. Let's extract some fields. So let's go from the compartment title, and from the role we'll take the title, damage permeability, structural permeability, and the free surface rule. And we'll link on our search from the compartment name to the name that we need to search with. So here you have the first pieces of information. Let's start tailoring the output for the display. Title, this is the role title, the role damage permeability, the role structural permeability, and the role surface rule. Put the slash in there. Okay. Save that, go back to our model. If I click on these spaces, we can see that this has machinery space, this is accommodation, this is accommodation, that is accommodation, mostly accommodation. We have some stores, there we go, some stores. Let's characterize these spaces in a similar way that we've done before. So if we go to our compartment data, and then we'll use that characterization, compartments by role, and again we will need to write a query for that, so we can select role.title and compartment name from compartments. Join roll on. Like so. And let's test that. It's all working. So now we go to our model and we get the shading. We have all the different roles that we have, and equally we can build up our spaces. So we have, say, machinery spaces that we can see between the area. We could see our accommodation spaces or the bow of the ship. And what else could be interesting? Our stores. We have some stores. And void spaces, water ballast. We have a good breakdown of how the ship works.